Hey guys, how y'all doing? My name is Kieran and this is Fox Off RPG. So today we're having a look at HellMarch. This is by Alchemic Raker. This is volume 1 called Mass Combat. So again, I will leave a description where you can find this, as I always do. You can get the PDF version or you can get the print on demand. I had a discount code given to me by Alchemic Raker, and so that was pretty awesome. So I got a discount on the PDF and on the print on demand copy. So that was absolutely brilliant. So I want to thank him. So basically what this is from what I understand, it takes from chainmail and it sort of changes things up a little bit to add in mass combat for Shadowdark. But it's not only Shadowdark, because this applies to any book really. So any game, I mean. So it talks about indoor combat, outdoor combat, other RPGs. Again, it's written for use for Shadowdark, but these rules can easily be used with OSE, Castle Crusade, Easy D6, or played without an RPG at all, because this is basically another game. But like, think of OD&D where chainmail was sort of supposed to be used. It's kind of like that. So again, it talks about heroes and troops. Heroes are the main characters, and for every level that a character has, they can have up to, I believe it's 10 troops. So say if you're a 3rd level character, you can have up to 30 troops under that character's command. Because you can attach heroes, your characters, to troops. They will lead them. They also give them a morale bonus, and they're also the last ones to enter combat. I talked with different types of troops, dealing with large number of troops, required dice, exclusive uses D6. So have a load of them is good. It does use D20 as well, just for hitting AC and stuff like that. But this is very quick, very easy to understand. There's only one point I had a little bit difficulty, but I read it a few times and I got it there. That's with the archers. I just didn't understand I was being dumb. That's all. So like it says here, when you basically you roll to hit their AC. If you hit the AC, so say you have 10 troops versus 10 troops, and they're both the same medium AC. So how it does the AC is you have light, medium, and heavy, and that's going to determine within a range. So it might be like 10 to 12 or something like that. And that could be like your goblins would be like a 10, but if you had maybe bandits, they might be 1 or 2 AC points higher. Then you're going to roll your D6s. So you roll a D6 for each member of a troop. So if you have 10 troops, you're going to roll 10 D6. And each 6 is always going to be a kill. Now, there can be other times where a 5 might be a kill. It's going to depend on the type of troop you're dealing with and some other stuff like that. But we'll get to all that now in a little bit. So it gives here, so fighters and clerics have 1 hit dice per character level. So a level 5, they have 5 hit dice, but thieves and wizards have 1 hit dice for level 1 to 2, 2 hit dice for level 3 to 4, and 3 hit dice for level 5 to 6. So here it gives an example: +1 for every level for fighters and clerics, +1 for every odd level for thieves and wizards. So this is going to keep the idea of the fighting man, essentially. So it talks about different types of troops. So light troops, they're going to have no armor, or they're going to have leather and shield, chainmail for medium, and plate mail for heavy. And it gives an example on the ACs. So again, like the light is 10 to 12. So maybe it's a 10 might be a bunch of goblins, or 11 could be a bunch of goblins with some leather armor or a shield. Then you have medium, they could be for more heavily armed bandits, maybe a bandit leader and stuff like that. So it's it gives leeway for the GM to sort of figure out who they want to have a bit more hit points than others. It talks about hit dice. 0 level creatures only have 1 hit die, but untrained presence do have disadvantage. So level 2 creatures may be encountered as 2 or more hit dice for each creature. For example, every level 2 hobgoblin rolls 2 hit dice when attacking and is only slain after taking 2 hits. So yeah, it talks about if you have too many hit dice, too many dice, you are going to basically divide it in half if you wish, if you don't have enough. And it's just to keep things quick and simple, because this is not meant to be overly cumbersome. It's meant to be simple, it's meant to be fun, and you can still role play while you're doing your combat. You can have this used with 10, 12 fighters in total, or you can use this with 50, 60, 100, 200 troops. So it's possible to play it any way, really. It's going to talk about some stuff in indoors as well. Morale, you're going to do morale check after every melee attack. If a leader is defeated, so say if you defeat a character that's leading an army of an opposing force, they will then have to do a morale check. If they lose 1/3 or more of their troops, they'll have to do a morale check, and the same applies to your guys. Treasure and XP may be placed at central points, and enemy leaders might carry gold pieces equal to their hit dice multiplied by 10. Uncertainty, if you may use 1 in 1/6 chance of being the last turn, which raises it to 2 in 6. A loss and defeat, upon claiming victory, the enemy will be routed if a feasible escape route exists, or captured and slain otherwise. Casualties are not fatal. Half the casualties are merely wounded and restored to health, given appropriate supplies and facilities. The loser's casualties are left on the battlefield and may be slain, taken prisoner, or perhaps even hired and pressed to the service if their alignment permits. So you're not going to have a bunch of orcs going to be on your side, but if they are like a bunch of bandits or something like that, or a force of an opposing army, like normal men, they might join you, or they mightn't join you because maybe they're forced from their own town, you're going to attack their town, they're not going to join you. And it talks about indoor combat. So this is going to be pretty simple and straightforward. It's going to use the sort of the movement they can do when based on their armor. Range combat. So your movement is going to be based upon your armor, because you're assuming you're doing miniatures as well. That's the thing. You can use, like, a Alchemic Raker uses Lego. You can use Lego if you want. You can use miniatures if you have them. You have fantasy miniatures or Warhammer miniatures. It doesn't matter. You can use them. You could even use dice or a bunch of like pencils and erasers to represent different troops and stuff like that. So it's pretty simple, pretty straightforward, and only range combat. So when you talk about range combat, the first 2 ranks of figures will fire. So say if we had 10 troops, we have 2 ranks, so 5 here and 5 there. So that's 2 lines. But if we had, say, 15 and there were 5 across each way, the back 3 will not fire, because it's assumed they don't have enough visual or distance between the targets who they're trying to hit and the people who are in front of them. Like, it's that they're tight together and stuff like that. But it does talk about later on and the different formations you can have to bring out more tactical gameplay. I did have a little bit of a problem trying to understand the archers a little bit, so we'll just read a little bit here, but I figured it out, so it's okay. So archers, they divide the number of archers by 2, 3 or 6 based on the target troop type. The result in the number of automatic hits and also the number of hit dice rolled, which hits on a 6. Archers may open fire when moving up to half their speed when caught in melee, but may not fire at all if they move further. Crossbows are similar to archers but are not capable of indirect fire. We'll give an example here. So when 10 archers fire upon medium troops, they will deal 3 automatic hits and roll 3 hit dice, hitting on 6s. If the targets were light troops, the archers would instead get 5 automatic hits and roll 5 hit dice. If the targets were heavy troops with partial cover, these archers would get no automatic hits. So basically, if you have any number of light troops, you're going to always have 3 automatic hits, and then you can roll if they hit. So that could be on a 5 or 6 depending on their armor and other stuff like that. So here it talks about on the light troops, 4 to 6 is going to be hit. On a medium or shield, 5 or 6 is going to be hit. On a heavy, it's 6 only on a dice. Yeah, so it kind of assumes the light guys are kind of screwed, but they're going to build up the bulk of their forces anyway, usually. So it makes sense. I got a little bit confused by that, but I figured it out. Not a big deal. So then, opposed unit checks. Opposed unit conduct melee combat when close by, so basically with 1 inch. So front ranks fight. Both sides roll the hit dice of figures in direct combat. So again, if we had 10 troops on each side, and the only troops which are in combat are the front 5 on each side, so you would roll 5 and my opponent would roll 5. Again, this is meant for not only RPG play, but you also play it as a war game by itself, a simple, straightforward war game. So say we both roll, again, I roll 5 and they roll 5. Maybe they kill 3 of mine and I kill 2 of theirs. So then you can assume that either my guys swap places or they will then move into place to fill up those holes. You can also surround armies or other forces. You can have different formations, which I just talk about later on. So you have a straight line formation of one across, but maybe it could be 10 or 15. And then if another formation comes towards you and they're tightly packed together, you could potentially surround them as well. So you're getting a flanking bonus, which basically gives you advantage. Talk about advantage or disadvantage. Each negative 1 step of advantage, further disadvantage steps will divide the number of dice rolled by 2 or 3 each round. So if an advantage, expand the hit range by 1 step from 6 to 5, or from 6 to 5 to 6, and then from 4 to 6. So if I have an advantage on someone, and the hit, say I was going against a heavy, was to only hit on 6s, I now can hit on 5s and 6s for gaining advantage. And some of the ways you can gain advantage is by flanking and so on. But disadvantage, so if I have disadvantage, basically what it's going to be is the further disadvantage steps will divide the number of dice rolled by 2 or 3 rounded down. Flanking is an appropriate general purpose advantage for any notable effective maneuver. So with disadvantage, you're going to be doing less attacking. Yeah. And it gives sort of like examples of advantages. So difference in quality is going to be normal. Flanking, you're going to have a normal. A leader nearby is going to give you normal, but you're going to get extra rolls. So if you're charging in, you're going to get extra rolls. Cavalry versus footmen, extra rolls. Extra roll for poleman, pole arms with a rank 2 plus, so level 2 or more. So like with pole arms is they have better reach, so they're able to hit you before you can touch them, so it gives them advantage. And cavalry, versus footmen is obvious, they can trample you. So basically you get 2 attacks to gain an extra attack with advantage. Melee morale, it talks about morale. You're going to do 2d6 to find out the morale. So I'll give you an example here. Morale and melee. So the quality is the hit difference. So if you have you'll gain +1 morale. If you outnumber them 2 to 1, you'll gain +2 morale. If you outnumber them 3 to 1, you'll gain +2 morale if you have elite troops, and a +5 for final stand in a homeland or stronghold. So give some examples here. So 20 bandits attack 15 guards, and after the first round of melee, 2 bandits and 5 guards are killed. The guards roll 2d6 melee morale. Their quality is 8, minus the 3 for the difference in the number of hits, so they must roll below a 5 to hold morale. The dice rolls a 2 and a 5. The sum total is 7, higher than the 5, so the morale fails, and the guards retreat 1 move back in orderly fashion. So it talks about different kinds of how you're going to do morale checks. Again, after combat, if you lose 1/3, like they did there, they lost 1/3, you will then need to roll again if your leader is defeated, or an intimidating presence. So that could be a big monster, a big leader character, or something that has like a fear effect. Morale failure. So on a failure, you're going to roll a 1d6, and a 1 to 2 is surrender. 3 to 4 is scatter, and they must be rallied. So you can have your one of your leader characters, one of your characters come in and basically gather the troops together, and retreat. They basically get the hell out of there in an orderly fashion. Oh yeah, and troop quality. So it talks about this. The quality is going to be the what you're going to be rolling. I meant to mention that. So if you have light troops, there's only 8, medium is 9, and heavy is 10. Outdoor combat. It's basically going to be the same, but instead of doing indoor measurements of 1 inch, you're going to be doing in yards. So yeah. Roads allow movement to ignore terrain. Roads allow units to ignore terrain penalties from the units in the column order or loose order. So say if you're having a battle and there's a big field, but there's also a road going through it, you can use that road to get around quicker and easier. But depending on how wide that road is, your troops might have to move around in a different order, and that might make them easier to be hit. Or if someone comes across them, like they charge into them, they make them a much more soft target. And it gives different types of movement based on the type of troops and that they have. Mountain movement is here. Terrain, so rough, no charging at all. Hill, no charging uphill, but you can charge downhill or across. River, full move to cross. Depending on what it is, you might do more or try more. Forest is impassable. You could also say if there's reinforcements, there's hidden in the forest, and they can come out later. And it talks more about range combat. It's basically the same thing, except it talks about the ranges. Archers may do indirect fire, shoot over obstacles that are in the way. So say if your guys are all hidden behind say a caravan that was fallen, they could then try to shoot over it, but if it's too far away they can't hit it, so you're limited in your range by 1/3. So say if your character you have a short bow, they shoot 15, they can now only shoot 10 to hit. And talks about the different, like we said earlier, formation. So you have your close formation, which is 1 file, 5 feet wide. So you could have, if you had 10 guys, you could have 5 in a line and 5 behind them. If you had 20 guys, you have 10 in a line and 10 behind them. You then have a line formation, which is 1 man deep across. Square formation is going to be a square, a limited movement. Units can't enter woods or fight in urban environments in close order, so they have to be spread out. So if you want to enter a woods, you're basically getting rid of the benefit of being in a squad or a troop. So if say they had archers hidden somewhere, like I said, as reinforcements, maybe the archers can be much easier for them to pick off. You can say 2 archers fire at the same guy, and you can give them disadvantage and stuff like that. And then it talks about some army building stuff here. So again, fighters or these 4th level may lead 40 troops per fighter hit dice. So a hit dice is obviously each time you level up, you're going to roll a hit dice, and that's going to be your hit points. Talked about you have mercenaries. Mercenaries are cheap when you buy them, but they can often turn away. If they run away, they can often turn and ignore orders. So when you roll, they're going to be either roll on a 1, they're going to be defect, and they're going to go to the other side, or they're going to run away. And on a 6, they're going to be loyal, and they do not need to re-roll again for another day. I talked about supplies as well. Supplies are kept just off the battlefield and may be raided by the enemy if they break through. So when it comes to supplies, they often assumes you have enough supplies and materials with you. Yeah. But of course, if you're unit which is defending an area and you're starving, maybe you've been there for a long time, you know, there you go. Names and standards is basically like make sure each different types of troop are different. You can put them in movement trays if you are doing that. I know Alchemic Raker, when he does it, he has, since he's using Lego, they just clip into Lego, like the Lego rectangles, and that's his movement tray. Raising local forces. So when you're raising a local force, you can raise up to 10% of that residence. So if you have an area that has, say, 1,000 men or villagers or 1,000 people in a village, you can then have up to 100 troops. You know, it's 10%. I'll give you an example encounter here. Melee morale, party notes, optional rules. So, fighters can be granted the leader ability. So it gives them advantage It gives them advantage and one nearby unit when fighting alone. So if they're not attached, the way I read this is if they're not attached to a unit, if they're close to a unit, they're going to basically inspire them. They see them fighting around, you know, they're being inspired by them. Scattered units always rally if charged. Scattered units always rally if charged, if led by a fighter. I don't think that's a typo, I think. So if guys are after breaking because they're after a failing morale check and they roll a d6 and they end up getting to run away, they can then come in, and if they're nearby, or they basically grab a bunch of the characters, a bunch of the troops, and say, get back in the fight. That basically inspires them to go back in. Led by a cleric, never check. Religious zealots, led by a cleric, never check morale due to excess casualties, and always retreat in good order when morale fails. So they're basically, if morale fails, they're basically going to keep kept together and they're not going to scatter. Sneaking thieves, roll hit dice twice as an advantage in melee the first time they charge into melee per combat. The thief must have been undetected up to that point. So basically if you're kind of off board or hidden somewhere and they come around behind. Wizard trolls, such as zombies, they're fearless like zealots led by a cleric. So they're basically like think of Dracula, his servant. He basically does whatever he's commanded. There's a bunch of rules in here. You can deny charges, taking prisoners, when you take prisoners, what they're going to do, weapon options. So there is a lot of stuff in here. You have then fantasy creatures, undead, dragons, hit dice ratios. So again, in a battle between 20 hobgoblins, which is 40 hit dice, and 20 gorillas, which is 80 hit points, you could just roll 20 dice for the hobgoblins, noting that they will take 2 rolled hits to a gorilla kill, or roll a d10 dice for the hobgoblins with each rolled hit scoring a kill. Similarly, the gorillas could roll 20 dice, noting that each hit rolled kills a hobgoblin. So basically, if you basically hit the AC and you have a huge number of characters, you just roll again. You roll a d20 for each of the hobgoblins. You roll a d20 for each 20 of the hobgoblins. So you roll 2 d20, and that's how many of them you kill. So this makes big battles go really quick. So if you just want to get back into your normal role-playing stuff and you want to deal with large-scale battles as well, it allows you to do that real quickly. It has some stuff for artillery, catapults, different cannons, just simple outlining stuff about positioning and stuff like that. The ranges, the hits, it's all here. Burning oil, covered ram, movable mantles, ladders. So it gets into a lot of stuff here. And I talked about structures and the amount of classifications and the structure, how much damage they can take. And it talks about Game Master advice. So just going over some of the stuff within here. Hit dice and ratios, like it says. You have a bunch, say if you have 40 one hit dice peasants fighting 20 hit dice, 20 normal fighters who have a hit dice of 2 each. You can just basically half that and roll the 20s to hit, make things go quicker. So it's pretty straightforward, pretty simple to understand when you start doing this. I think the best way for people to try this out is don't implement it in your RPG straight away. Create up a scenario and just play, just so you and your players can understand how it works. And you can do this multiple times over in a few minutes, really, because it will not take long to get through. It will not take long for you to get through a couple games of this. It's quite straightforward and quick. Obviously, the more you have in terms of troops, the longer it's going to take. But then you can reduce the dice or change the dice. But most players for the long time will be having lower sort of combat. Because again, you could be, if you wanted, you could have say 10, 15 enemies, and you have your 3, 4 characters, and they could fight them using these rules. If you want to do it quickly, if you're short on time, say for some reason you're a gaming group and you only have an hour to play, and like half that time is going to be in combat, you could just use these rules to get through combat quickly. You know, that's something you could do. Or if you're a party or a group that likes to do big domain play, you have different rules that maybe you don't have in your RPG game, like in Shadowdark doesn't have mass combat stuff, so you could do that. Or if you just want a bit more quicker, snappier rules in your other RPGs. So yeah, I think this is great. I basically done the scenarios, sort of make up scenarios and stuff like that, and play this as a war game just by itself. It's simple, straightforward, and stuff like that. Yeah, pretty cool. I had some of my my not Warhammer minis, my 3D prints, and I just got them together and I just done some battles. So yeah, it's pretty simple, pretty straightforward. Again, when I was reading this there, sometimes I mumble or I lose myself, which I do have a tendency of doing. But yeah, this is also very cheap, in my opinion anyway. It's definitely well worth any price. Even if you just want the PDF, it's absolutely worth it. So yeah, that's it guys. So let me know what you think, and I'll see you again in the next one.